What's up, you guys? Forrest here with the FoCoflowshow. If you're new to the channel, we're a mountain bike focused channel here in Charlottesville, Virginia, where we do trail reviews, product reviews, bike rides, highlighting everything that's awesome about mountain biking here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Today, we're looking at the OneUp V2 dropper post, give you an idea what our thoughts on, our likes, our dislikes, and a quick tutorial on how to install a dropper post. So, hope you find this helpful. If you're liking the content, make sure you like and subscribe so you can get out there and find that flow. The OneUp V2 dropper post that we are looking at is the 180mm version with the new 2.1 actuator. The actuator is a little lever that the cable pulls when you hit the dropper lever, and it activates the dropper length. The V2 boasts the shortest overall length and the narrowest seat collar, so you can maximize the length of a dropper post. If a 150mm drop fit before, you might be able to do the 180mm, which is what I'm doing on my timberjack here. It can be shimmed down with those little pins there that we'll look at in a minute, and for $215, it's not a bad price, right in the middle of the cost of dropper posts on the market today. So let's get into the install, and we'll talk about the likes and the dislikes of this post. Packaging is pretty straightforward for the V2. Open it up, pull it out. When you're installing a dropper post or replacing your existing regular seat post, the most important thing to do is pay attention to the seat post diameter. The Timberjack is a 30.9, but a lot of other bikes like my Ripmo go with a 31.8 diameter. If you get that wrong, it won't slide in and you're gonna be out of luck. There's that seat post that's super narrow, the seat collar, excuse me, and the overall length is designed to be as short as possible. Otherwise, it's cable actuated, pretty simple. So we can move over to figuring out what's required to get the cable in, through the frame, and installed on the bike. Materials you need are pretty simple. You need a cable, if you don't already have one, and cable housing to run through the bike that you see there. You're gonna need a pair of wire cutters as well as a torque hex wrench so that you know exactly how tight to tighten everything down, especially the seat collar. When you tighten that back down, it's very easy to over tighten, which can impact the performance of the dropper. You feed everything through, you connect it up and get it going. So let's look at what that actually looks like on the bike. As mentioned, this is being installed on my Timberjack that already has a dropper leveler and the cable housing run through the frame. So this is a little easier than if you need to install the lever and the cable housing to get started with if you're putting it on a bike that doesn't already have a dropper. We're already set up here on the Timberjack and it runs through the frame. So that's the first step and easiest step when looking to install the dropper. From there, you take the bare cable and the little grommet that goes on the far end of the nub. You can actually do it without this little piece, but of course it comes with the dropper post. So you feed it in and take that cable all the way down to the end. That's the piece that's going to actuate when you pull the lever. From there, you feed the bare end of the cable through the seat post side of the cable housing until it pushes out the other side near the handlebars. Once you have that set, you take the little grommet in the far end of the dropper post and slide in the little grommet into the lever. It helps to push it down with your other finger to get it to pull down just enough to slide in the cable grommet. And then use your hand to pull the cable tight until the cable housing seats into the actuator that you see there. And from there, you very carefully, very slowly pull the cable and push down on the dropper so that it all stays connected as it slides into the seat post. So you don't want to pull it too hard with the cable or push it too hard with the dropper, but sort of at the same time, and it will slide down into the seat post if all is lined up correctly. Back over on the handlebars, you take the other end of the cable, and most dropper levelers function pretty similarly, where you feed the cable through the open end and make sure you pull the lever up so that it slides all the way straight through, and then you want to push the cable housing into the barrel adjuster of the dropper lever, and then you take a Allen wrench of some kind to tighten down a pinch bolt with enough tension on it that you're not pulling and actuating the dropper. So just pull it lightly tight and then tighten up that pinch bolt. And from there, the actual functionality of the dropper post should be ready to test. At this point, you can go ahead and get that seat post height where you think it needs to be and use the torque wrench to tighten it down. And then you get to try to install the actual saddle, unless you think you need to adjust the air pressure on the actuation. Installing saddles on every bike post I have ever tried is just a giant pain in the butt. The only thing I've learned is to get it as loose as you possibly can with the two bolts, and then wrangle with it until you get it on there, and then adjust up and down on those two bolts to get the saddle light. You'll have to test this a bunch, but we'll fast forward here to get to the next step. This is a 180 millimeter dropper, but the length will not let me get it down to the seat collar where it hits the bottle cage bolts. So I need to shim this with those little teeny tiny metal shims. I'm going to shim it with these little guys. You put 3 of them on top of each other to lose 10 millimeters. I think I need to lose about 20 millimeters, which is what 2 of these will do. You put the shims in, and then you put grease on it, and you put the sleeve back over it. So we need to be able to get this off, so you do need some kind of ratchet strap to loosen the collar and slide it up. So this could be a little bit of a daunting task at first when you're taking off the seat post collar. You do need that strap wrench I borrowed from my neighbor to get off the collar. It's a little bit tight where the P&W one could just spin off by hand, but once you get that going, you're gonna feel a little nervous trying to fit those shims into the little grooves, and it helps to actuate the dropper to get access to the shims. But the key there is to use the grease that comes with, or any real mountain bike grease will do the job to drop those in to the little grooves, and it's going to shorten the travel from 180 to 170 or all the way down to 160 in case your legs are not long enough for the total 180 millimeters of travel. Or in my case, the bolts for the water bottle cage on the seat post, not on the down tube, prevented the drop from going far enough in. So I've got a couple, maybe an inch of exposed dropper post there, and so I needed to shorten the travel so that my legs were not fully extended when I was pedaling. So once you get all the shims in place, you slide the sleeve down over top of those shims, and then you bring down the seat post collar as well. And then the other tip that I learned from another video would be to just actuate that dropper post down about halfway, and that helps slide everything down into place so that you can actually screw the seat post collar back snugly onto the entire dropper post. So you actuate it just a little bit like you see me doing here, and then you should be able to screw everything back on. Again, not hand tight, you're going to need that ratchet strap wrench to get it snug, and then from there you're good to cut the cable over by the dropper lever, put a little cable clamp on it, and then actuate. You should be good to go. So once we got everything installed, we took it out to the Cascadian neighborhood proving grounds just to get seat post height dialed in, make sure it actuates correctly, all's good. And if you need to adjust, it's pretty easy with an Allen key. So let's take it quickly on the trail over to Mint Springs to get a quick ride clip to give a feel on the trail. All right, that concludes the first ride on the OneUp dropper post here at Mint Springs. It was, as expected, pretty smooth, pretty easy, no issues, up and down like you want a dropper post to do. So first impressions is good. The install was super easy. The little shims was a little bit weird to drop the travel from 180 down to 160, but doable. Use that grease and it holds those little pins in and you're good to go. So I've had a bunch of dropper posts. Long-term will tell whether or not I recommend this long-term compared to like the more expensive Fox Transfer or the bike yoke that I have on my Ripmo. But again, for the price, just over $200, hard to be too upset about that. So this is a great option if you're looking for a more budget-friendly dropper post with a lot of travel, so you can get out there and find that flow.